Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. As always, I am so excited to have you guys here. And if you're new here, hello, welcome. My name is Claire. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and my goal for this channel is to help you guys feel more educated and empowered when it comes to your health. So if that is something you're interested in, definitely click the subscribe button because we would love to have you stick around. And my goal for these What I Eat in a Week videos is to give you guys more information about nutrition, but also to show you how I consistently make healthy, whole food focused meals and show you how you can incorporate more whole foods into your diet. I always preface this by saying that my diet is not perfect. I really don't think that a perfect diet exists. Instead, we should be focusing on getting as many whole foods as we can and eating as much micronutrient dense foods as we can. And of course, making sure that we're doing all the things outside of the kitchen to keep ourselves as healthy as possible. And while I do my best to tell you guys exactly everything that's going into my meals, it's really important to remember that these meals are just a template. So starting off on Monday, I usually try and aim to get about 20 grams of protein at least in my breakfast. And lately that has just been in the form of 3 hard-boiled eggs. And then I'll usually pair that with any leftover veggies or resistant starch that I had on hand. This morning I did some purple sweet potatoes and I just had that pretty early in the day and then made myself a coffee to go because I was helping my brother and his girlfriend move out of their apartment. They have this beautiful apartment with this amazing view, but they're moving to another apartment with an amazing view. And it ended up being a pretty hectic day and I ended up not really having lunch, but just kind of having a few snacks that I forgot to film. I generally like to stick to 3 main meals. I find it's the best for my energy levels and my digestion, but this was a perfect example of a day where things got busy. But when I came home, I just had a snack of walnuts to tide me over, and then I got started on dinner. And like I said, it was a pretty busy day, but I knew that I had a can of chickpeas somewhere in my cupboards, so I found those. Normally, I like to cook my beans and legumes from scratch. I'll usually soak them overnight, and then for chickpeas, I'll cook them for about an hour to an hour and 20 minutes. But in a pinch, some well-rinsed canned chickpeas are totally a great option as well. And here, I'm just making one of my staple meals, which is a giant salad. A big salad is just a really easy way for me to get in all of the things that I like to include in meals, which is color, fiber, protein, carbohydrates, and then a healthy fat. So here I'm starting with a base of greens, and then we always have some leftover protein from the weekend because me and my boyfriend really like to cook. So here I'm just adding a leftover chicken breast, and then I also decided to have a little bitter tincture. This is kind of a side note on digestion, but I really like using bitter herbs sometimes when it's just been kind of a busier day and I feel like maybe my digestion needs a little bit more support. So I had some of that. I also had some leftover Japanese sweet potato in the fridge, so I chopped that up as part of my complex carbohydrate and also a source of fiber. I added the chickpeas, again, another source of complex carbohydrates and some fiber. Avocado, a great source of healthy fat and more fiber. This is just a very fiber-packed dinner, which I love. I also added some sauerkraut, again, for those probiotics. You have probiotics in the sauerkraut and then prebiotics in the fiber. I always add parsley to my salads. I just love the taste. It's also got lots of phytonutrients. I added a little bit of salt, and then for my dressing, I always do a little bit of balsamic vinegar. And this is the olive oil that I use. Whenever I'm telling people to look for olive oil, you just want to look for a high quality olive oil that is just extra virgin olive oil, nothing else. And a lot of times the high quality ones will have the date that it was pressed on, so you want to look for ones that are fresh, and you also want it to come in a dark glass bottle because olive oil can oxidize. I always taste test my food just to make sure that the seasoning is on point, and then I served that up, and that was my dinner. This is a pretty staple meal for me because, like I said, it's just a very easy way to get a lot of macro and micronutrients in. I also topped it off with some walnuts there. And then over the weekend, I decided to make some of these little gelatin gummies because I had some gelatin in the cupboard that I really wanted to use up. And of course, I see these on Instagram all the time. So I wanted to give them a try, but sometimes I like to reverse engineer why these trends go viral online and give you guys some context onto why these are so good for your quote unquote gut health. Now, the main reason why these are supposed to be so good for our gut health is because they contain gelatin, and gelatin contains glutamic acid, which the body can then form into glutamine. Glutamine is an amino acid that can help to promote a healthy mucosal lining within the stomach and digestion tract. In fact, it's something that I use sometimes in different combination products as part of a larger gut protocol for someone with digestive issues. Obviously, it's not the only thing that we're using confusing, but it's part of the larger picture. And that is why gelatin is known to be so good for your gut lining. But it's important to remember that in general, just getting enough protein in our diet can help to make sure that we're getting adequate glutamine. And then, of course, making sure that we're doing all the other things to address anything that's causing damage to the mucosal lining that we would need glutamine to promote healing of. And things that damage our gut lining are things like ultra-processed foods, chronic stress, poor sleep, gut dysbiosis, a sedentary lifestyle, just to name a few. And it's also important to remember that these end up having some added sugar in them as well. And we know that sugar isn't good for the gut lining as well. And while I definitely consume refined sugar in my diet, I try and keep it very minimal. So that is just my thought on the gelatin gummies. Again, they can be a fun snack, but definitely not something that's necessary. Now, moving on to Tuesday, you guys know I go into the clinic pretty early. So I took my breakfast with me. I took 3 hard-boiled eggs along with some resistant starch in the form of some leftover sweet potato. And then I always like to wait until after breakfast to have my coffee. So I made my coffee and took it with me. I added some soy milk. This is the one that I really like because it is just organic soybeans and filtered water, nothing else. Now, when I got home for lunch, I decided to make a tofu scramble for lunch. I have been getting lots of comments from you guys asking for non-egg based high protein breakfast ideas. So this is one that I also love. It's packed with protein. It's got lots of micronutrients from all of the vegetables in it as well. And it's meal prep friendly, which you guys know I love. And I know that there is a lot of confusion out there about soy. Again, this is something I get comments on all the time. And the 2 most common things that I hear about soy is that soy is inflammatory and that soy is bad for women's health. But soy has been consistently shown to be beneficial for women's health through the phytoestrogenic effect. Phytoestrogens are estrogen-like compounds naturally found in plant foods like soy, and they can actually help to modulate estrogen within the body. This has been shown to improve metabolic markers, bone density, and symptoms in both peri and postmenopausal women. It's also been shown to decrease breast cancer risk and improve breast cancer outcomes. Overall, soy has been shown to be a great food for women, and of course, the source matters. Generally with soy, I tend to advise patients to stick to organic sources and try and get it from more minimally processed products like tofu, tempeh, or edamame. Soy can also be a great anti-inflammatory food through isoflavones and other phytonutrients that can help lower inflammation in the body. I think a reason why soy is often associated with pro-inflammatory is because it's often included in many ultra-processed foods, which we know can be pro-inflammatory. And there are a few medical conditions where it may be beneficial to remove soy from the diet. So if you think that removing soy from your diet may be beneficial, that's definitely something to speak with your doctor about. But for the average healthy person, soy can definitely be a healthy part of the diet and a beneficial part of the diet. So I just cooked down some onion, mushrooms, and zucchini, and then I added my spices. I added some turmeric, a great anti-inflammatory herb. I also added some garlic powder, nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is a great source of B vitamins, and most people do not get enough B vitamins, so I love adding that as well. I also added some salt and a little bit of pepper just to help activate the curcumin. I set about 2/3 of that aside to save for leftovers, and then I added some more of my leftover sweet potatoes and made basically like a little skillet for lunch. Again, this is high protein, high fiber. We have resistant starches. We have lots of phytonutrients, lots of anti-inflammatory support. This is overall just a really great staple meal. Of course, I also added some avocado on top just for some more healthy fats, and that was my lunch. I know I didn't do a great job at explaining the amounts of everything. I mostly just eyeball stuff, but I will put a full list of the ingredients in the description box below for you guys. And then a little bit after lunch, I decided to get a kickstart on dinner and make up some of my sweet potatoes. You guys know I love to keep roasted sweet potatoes on hand because when you cook and cool a starch, it becomes a resistant starch. It can help to feed the good gut bacteria in your microbiome, so great for supporting healthy digestion. Resistant starches are also great for blood sugar control, so definitely something that I like to add to all of my meals. I will usually do a mix between the purple and Japanese sweet potato. I like the taste of both of them. I also love the health benefits of bright purple food. Like I said, you want to make sure you're getting lots of color in your diet, and I will always season these the same way. I do avocado oil, cinnamon, and a little bit of sea salt. Those in the oven, and then they had enough time to cool down before dinner. And then I was out and about a little bit in the afternoon and I wanted some coconut water. I picked this one up. It's not my favorite because it does have a little bit of added sugar, but yeah. Just not my favorite, but was the only option there. Anyway, moving on to dinner. This is a very staple template meal for me. I just started by roasting up some vegetables. Here I did Brussels sprouts. I just gave them a chop, rinsed them, and then I usually will season them with some avocado oil, garlic powder, and salt. I love using garlic powders. Garlic has a lot of health benefits as well. It's antimicrobial. It can help with blood pressure control as well. So something I like to include really any of the allium vegetables. So onions, leeks, shallots, all of those have a lot of health benefits. And while I had the oven on, I decided I might as well roast some carrots as well. So I threw those on the pan and again, just seasoned them with some salt, garlic powder, and avocado oil. Pop that in. And then while my vegetables were cooking, I got started on my protein. So I had a bunch of chicken. Chicken is definitely one of the most used protein sources. I generally like to use a variety of protein, both plant and animal-based protein sources. Chicken thighs are just ones that are very easy. I generally like the taste of, so definitely something that I like to use a lot of. And then I also just warmed up some of the sweet potatoes in the oven. I get asked all the time, if you reheat the resistant starches, are they still resistant starches? And yes, they are. So you can reheat them and you're still getting the benefit. And like I said, this is a pretty typical meal for me. About half the plate is vegetables, about a quarter is protein, and a quarter is complex carbohydrate. I will usually top it off with a little bit of healthy fat, maybe some avocado. Here I used some tahini, and that was my dinner. You can really play around with the proportions based on your personal needs. And then I just had a date with peanut butter for dessert. And moving on to Wednesday, I started my day with a little bit of apple cider vinegar and water. I love this for digestion. I love this for blood sugar support. And then I just warmed up some of the leftover tofu scramble with some purple sweet potatoes for breakfast. Again, a high protein, high fiber breakfast. We have some resistant starches in the sweet potato. Just a great way to start your day.
Some days I'm waking up on the wrong side of my head, and I got all these eyes on me, staring at me through my screen. Most nights I just can't wait to lie down. So tired from my thoughts that keep on swirling around. Medication used to help me breathe. Now it feels like it's abusing me. 'Cause all of my thoughts take the air.
And then moving on to lunch, at this point, you guys have seen me make this salad so many times. I don't need to reiterate what is going in it or why I'm putting those things in. But I have gotten a lot of comments from you guys asking for alternatives if you can't tolerate this much raw vegetables. And I totally feel you guys. When I was really struggling with my gut health, raw vegetables were just not something that I could eat. What I used to do is focus a lot more on just very well cooked vegetables, especially a lot of the root vegetables or low FODMAP vegetables were a lot easier for me to eat while I was still doing all the other things to help heal my gut. So you could basically do something very similar to this, but instead of the greens being your base, you could do something like a bunch of roasted vegetables. I think that soups and stews are also a really great option. I also added some goat cheese on this day. That's kind of something different. But anyway, that is another alternative. If you can't tolerate big salads like this, definitely roasted or cooked vegetables will be your friend as well. And that way you're still getting the same meal composition. You're still getting lots of vegetables, lots of color, protein, healthy fats, just in a different form. And that's a really great example of just tailoring your nutrition to your personal needs, knowing what works best for your body, and then utilizing that in your day-to-day nutrition. In the afternoon, I had another one of the little gummies, but I think my verdict on these is I didn't like it. I don't know. Maybe I used the wrong type of juice in mine. I did not like the taste. Anyway, moving on to dinner, we are utilizing tofu again. Like I said, I like to use a mix of both plant and animal-based sources of protein, and tofu is just a very affordable option. And we are making one of my favorite dinners, and that is spring rolls and peanut sauce. So I just started by marinating my tofu, I use the same marinade every time. I will just do a little bit of tamari, maple syrup, and garlic powder. If you are very worried about the sugar content in food, you can keep the maple syrup out, but it's also really important to remember the composition of our meals. We're not having this sugar on an empty stomach. We're just having a very small amount of sugar along with lots of fiber, lots of water-rich foods, protein, fat that are all going to impact how we digest and absorb the sugar. So just something to keep in mind. But at this point, you guys have seen me make these spring rolls so many times. I'll usually do avocado, shredded carrots, tofu, some spring mix, and then I will roll them up. I'll usually have about 3 or 4 at least for dinner. And then I don't think that I showed myself making the peanut sauce because I had it left over from the week before, but I will definitely link my last video where I made my peanut sauce. And then on Thursday morning, I made the mistake of having a coffee on an empty stomach. It's so weird. I know better than to do this because I know that it doesn't make my body feel very good. But every once in a while, I just slip up. I wake up feeling like a coffee. I also don't start work until the afternoons on Thursdays. So I like to take a little bit of a slower morning just because we're getting to the end of the week and I like to give myself that little break. But I just always know that I don't feel very good after I have coffee on an empty stomach. So that was a mistake, but I just ended up finishing up my coffee while I read a book. I tried to do a little meditation that obviously did not go very well because I just had coffee. I ended up going for a walk just to walk off some of the jitters, and then I started on breakfast. I just warmed up some more of my tofu scramble, added some more purple sweet potato, and that was my morning on Thursday. Okay, and then Thursday afternoons and Fridays tend to be my busiest time in clinic, so I always like to make just a very quick lunch before I leave. And this is a really great example of why batch prepping and always making leftovers is just so handy. Here, I'm just warming up some of the leftover Brussels sprouts and carrots that I had and some of the sweet potato. And then for my protein, I'm using sardines. Sardines are one of my favorite proteins. They are so affordable, they're easy, and they are actually really micronutrient dense. They're high in things like calcium, omega-3 fatty acids, and vitamin D. They're also lower on the food chain than bigger fish like salmon, so they tend to be lower in mercury. Overall, just a really great option. And then I usually get home pretty late on Thursday, so I always want something quick. So of course, I just made myself up another big salad. At this point, I don't really have to explain this salad anymore. But again, guys, just making sure you're getting in some color, some fiber-rich carbohydrates, some proteins, healthy fat, add some seasoning to make it taste good, and you will have a healthy meal. Okay, now Fridays are always my busiest day in clinic, and I'm in the clinic the whole day, so I will usually pack both my breakfast and my lunch. And I just took a few of my hard-boiled eggs along with some sweet potatoes, and then for lunch I just made a big salad. I really like to take Fridays to try and clear out the fridge as best as I can. I live by myself, so whatever I buy I have to eat, and I think that's one of the reasons why I just eat the same meals on repeat. It's because I buy things in bulk and then I end up having to eat them all. But I had about about half a carrot left over, so I decided to shred that up. I used the rest of my sweet potatoes. I added some tofu for protein. I think I also took a half an avocado on the side with me. And then I also just packed a little dressing as well. I just made a dressing with some olive oil, balsamic vinegar, and a little bit of salt. And then I added a little bit of parsley to the salad as well. Took that with me to go. And even though I'm taking my food with me to the office, I always make an effort to take a break when I eat. It's really important to not work while we eat and just take a break. It really allows us to concentrate on our food and get into that rest and digest state. I also took a coffee with me to have after my breakfast and not on an empty stomach. And then I came home after work and my boyfriend had bought me flowers, which was just such a lovely treat. And we decided to make one of our favorite dinners for dinner that night. So we walked down to Kensington Market and picked up all the stuff to make pesto pasta. We picked up some chicken from a local butcher shop that we really like to go to in Kensington. And we also bought a ton of mushrooms. I did a mix of normal, I guess these would be cremini mushrooms, and shiitake mushrooms. I love shiitake mushrooms. I love the flavor of them. They are also just super high in choline, so great for the liver, great for cognitive function as well. And I just started by washing those and then sauteing them up. And like I said, I usually like to clear out the fridge as best as I can on Friday, so I also looked to see what else I could add, and I decided to use up the rest of the zucchini as well. And then once my veggies were done, I just placed those aside in a bowl to keep them warm, and I cooked some chicken. I just seasoned it with my normal trinity of parsley, garlic powder, and sea salt. I let that cook down, and then while my chicken was cooking, I got started on the pasta. I like to use the pasta that's imported from Italy. I just find that the wheat digests a little bit better for me, and this is white pasta. We just prefer the taste and the texture. Whenever I'm eating a refined carbohydrate, which I try and keep those on the lower end, I just make sure that I'm pairing it with lots of fiber-rich vegetables and protein, and this will help to slow the digestion and blunt that glucose increase. Obviously, I do try and keep the refined carbohydrates to a minimum, and you could always swap this for something like a whole wheat pasta. So I just added my veggies. I added some green peas, some pesto, and a little bit of sun-dried tomatoes as well. And that was our dinner. We also ended up adding a little bit of goat cheese on top. And then I think I had a date and peanut butter for dessert. I never really film on the weekends because I really like to be present. But this weekend I did grab some clips for you guys. Me and my boyfriend do really like to cook on the weekends. On Saturday and Sundays, we will always make up a big veggie scramble. We'll usually walk down to a local bakery and get some sourdough bread. And then for date night this week, we ended up going out to a Mediterranean place. I never really worry about when I eat out or anything like that because so much of my diet is made up of whole foods, and I really prioritize that as a dietary pattern. And then on Sundays, we usually will go to the fish market, pick up some salmon, and do salmon, broccoli, and sweet potatoes. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I hope you guys got some value or information out of the video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, if there's anything else that you want to see on this channel. As always, I am here to support you on your health journey, whatever that looks like for you. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.